Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to the channel. My name is TR Kerr, and today we're going to be mastering orchestral music, more specifically trailer orchestral music. And this is really just if you've just finished mixing and you have a clean master slate. I have some techniques and tips. We're going to be using Ozone 8, but as always you can apply this to any plugins that you use to master. Totally up to you. So I'm going to play you the before and after, and I'm going to show you how we got there. So guys, thanks for clicking on the video, and I hope you like what you're about to see. So you have your mix, you have your project created, mixed, your melodies are perfect, everything sounds good. Now it's time for the master. So we're going to be using Ozone 8 and we're going to be referencing. This is going to be reference mix. So let's go over to, first of all, if you don't know how to reference, you're just going to click right here, drop in your reference track, drag it in, just drop it. I'm using a Blade Runner track from a clip I grabbed off YouTube. Something you have to be careful when mixing, especially if you're referencing mixing off of YouTube, is YouTube actually brings the volume down on anything published. Is like the music's kind of normalized, if you know what that term means, and it is a little bit more quieter. So keep that in mind when you're reference mixing off a clip grabbed off of YouTube. So I've already did kind of a mix here, but we're gonna just do it from the start, just so y'all know, or master here. And we're going to analyze our audio. I froze my tracks right here. I like to freeze my tracks so I don't get system overload. That's just what I do, and if I have to go in and remix it, I will. There's another reason why I never, when I'm mixing or mastering, I never export the full clip, because I usually go back and remix stuff. I probably won't do that just for the sake of this video, trying to keep it shorter for y'all. So let's just go ahead and let it analyze the audio. You probably want to take off your headphones for this part because it can get a little loud. So let's go. I like to go to the big drop, I guess you could call it. We'll start right here in the build up. So we're gonna have the build up, and then we have a quiet spot right there, and that'll give us a little bit more dynamics. And we have the drop right there, and this is the loudest part, so it's gonna be careful not to clip. And this is why you take off your headphones right here, because you can see that maximizer is not set right at all. And just loop it again. Okay, so let's put on our headphones. Okay, so basically the maximizer is always going to be wrong, but that's not what's important. So the first thing I'd like to do is actually go into dynamics, and we're going to start on the build up right here. Let's just highlight that, loop it, and whoops. So we're going to add in all the dynamic range, all the band ranges. I usually like to do something like this, and we can actually punch learn and see what it thinks everything should be set at. We're going to relearn right there. This is nice to get a baseline, but I do like to bring this up to about 250. I'm going to take this down just a tad and bring this down right here. So dynamics is basically injecting dynamics into your sound, and I like to use it for that, but I also like to use it for this attack right here. So if you think about sound, sound waves are different lengths. The lower the sound wave, the longer the length. So if you have a long, low-length sound wave and you just cut it off, it's not going to sound as good as if you let it slowly come in and slowly come out, because it's a long wave. We're basically going to get to control that right here with attack. So I like to bring my attack up, let's say to something like 39 for my bass right here, which this is something you have to be careful about. I did not change my low frequency. You have to click right there to change your low frequency. Okay, so it set our attack at 30. That's not bad at all. And then you can see right here they recommend 20. Well, I messed that up, so I don't know what they're recommending. Let's take this attack down to 13. This one around 4, and this one around 11 or 13, maybe a little bit higher, 20. So as you see, I didn't listen to anything there, and that's kind of something you have to think about. Once you change something, listen to it and see how it sounds. So let's give it a listen. We're going to solo our bass. Our attack's I can hear from listening, our attack's a little too intense, and we clipped a little bit right there. So I'm going to take that up and take our threshold down slightly. Okay, so pretty good. So now it's time for the mid-range. And make sure you change release. I'm going to change that to something like there. Maybe make our attack a little bit longer. And that is just giving us a nice long, it's letting the wave propagate still without cutting it off like that. So go over to the second one. That sounds pretty good right there. Now top. Definitely want to, whoops, wrong thing again right there. Definitely going to want this to be, want these sounds to be a little bit tighter. You see, it just drags it out then. And maybe that's a little too fast. Okay, sounds good. So what we did there is we are kind of shaping the envelope of how all these sounds are going to be reacting within their respective ranges. So dynamics done right there. And I would like to point out, I didn't even look at the equalizer. I don't really like to equalize too much on the final thing. And that's partly because I like to do a little bit of the dynamic EQ. And let's take these up some. And if I was mixing, I would actually have soloed these out, or I guess muted these and only focused on this one because these are affecting the sound slightly. But for this, it's not that big of a deal because we're trying to condense it all together. So let's play it and see what we have. So you can actually see the EQ reacting to the sound right here. It's bending down. And I forgot to show y'all the before and after the dynamics, so I'll do that real quick. So you can tell that the dynamics made it sound a lot lower, especially, or a lot fuller, especially on the low end, and that's because we gave our sub actual time to come in and come out, and instead of just cutting it off like that. So we'll come over to the dynamics again. Everything is mixed pretty well. We didn't actually have to do that much in this case, and the EQ does react to the frequency. So if you have some frequencies that are out of control, it's good to always put that on there. So you saw me mess with the maximizer a little bit, and honestly this track does not need to be maximized that much. We're already almost there in the mix. You can see If anything, I would go in and remix the low end on these drums right here, because you can tell they're clipping the sound a little bit. But other than that, everything is... We'll start a threshold up to negative 2 dB. But other than that, everything is pretty good with the maximizer. And you can mess with the character a little bit. I like to leave it around 1. It's not a big deal. Stereo independence, we kind of are going to shape our stereo with the imager right here. Now is the perfect time to do that. So, like I said, when you're working with sound, you're dealing with waves. And if you have, like, especially in the low end, from anything from like 20 to 200 hertz, you're going to have long waves up to 8 feet. And even lower or even longer if you're working with under 20 hertz. But basically, what we're trying to do here is decrease the chance that we're going to have phase cancellation. So if you have stereo speakers and they're both playing 8-foot long waves, it's going to be pretty easy for those waves to cross over and cancel out with each other. Not a big problem in the high frequencies because the waves are so tight. But right here, we'll go and we're going to just solo our... First, just make sure that you haven't soloed anything. We're going to turn this back on. I always like to check to make sure. Sometimes I isolate a frequency and forget. So we have all of our other frequencies are open in all this. So we're ready to use the imager. We're going to solo the low end. And you can use any of these. I like to use polar level. I think it's the best visually to mix, but sometimes you don't need to visually mix, you just need an auditory mix. Alright, so like I said, we're gonna want our stereo width to go down a little bit. It is pretty wide. When doing orchestral music, when mixing orchestral music, your stereo is gonna be a little bit wider than normal, like EDM or pop music. But we still don't want it too wide because it is the low ends. So listening right here, that doesn't sound too bad right there, and this is where I usually set it. So that's just the way I've mixed things already. I kind of know how I mix, so I can know how I master. So we're going to our high or our mids. And you might be tempted to do this, but don't do that because your sound will start to sound really thin. It sounds great isolated, but it sounds super thin when you have everything kind of stacked on top of each other because you have nothing in the middle. It's all on the edge. I'm going to keep it around here. Let's see. That's where I want about right there. Now we're going to solo this. And this is not too bad right here. I like to make my highs pretty wide, so that's good right there. So let's hear the before and after on that. So, listening right there, you can tell it sounds a little bit wider in the highs, and it sounds more driven, and that is coming from the lows. So we achieved our kind of our purpose with that. So let's see, the last thing we're going to do is excite it, and we're actually going to move our exciter in front of our imager. And if you don't know what exciting does, it's kind of like It's kind of like extreme compression almost. It's not exactly like that. It's the only thing I can relate it to being is like compression. So we're gonna go over and we're gonna obviously solo our frequencies. And I will tell you right now, I usually don't excite my lows at all. So we're gonna listen to see if I need to do that here. Now we're getting distortion, an extreme distortion right there. Our lows are already powerful enough. I think we can even take this a little bit further. Yeah. Our lows are perfectly fine. They don't need to be excited at all. Our mids, they could maybe use some work. We're hovering around -10. We're going to switch the kind of the algorithm to analog. Now I'm switching back to show you what just happened. So we get way less compression or distortion sounds in analog, so that's why you like to switch to analog. And I'm not even gonna mess with it in the lows. We could go back and do maybe some slight changes, but it's really, I don't like to use I don't like to use the triode. I guess that's just the algorithm that they're using to excite. You could maybe use it on the highs, but okay, like that sounds really aggressive. And now let's go to the high mids. I guess that's what you would call them. So what I do when I'm exciting is I pick a specific sound. For that one, for example, for that one I was listening just to the cymbals and how they sound in the mix. And I kind of liked this pulled down a little bit more. So that sounds pretty good right there. And then our highs. Sorry if this is killing your ears. So that's it right there. Don't be afraid to change your, I guess you could say, don't be afraid to change the algorithm that you're using. So let's turn this off and see how it sounds. First, let's solo everything. So we have a pretty full mix, and now it's time to you'll see what we're gonna do here. So this is a technique called leveling, and I have automation clips and everything set on this, but I'm just gonna explain it to you what you would do. I like to do leveling towards the end. I level when I mix, and then I re-level when I master, and I usually create my master chain first. level it, which means take it down 10 decibels, and then I go in and I listen to it, and I usually save this preset right here, and I'll show you how to do that. You just click this little button right here. Let's name it like pre-level V1, and then I just save it. I'm not going to save this though, so then I would go in and re-level it. And if you like, usually when I re-level it, since I did say I had automation clips, I would export this at 10 decibels negative. Make sure to export it as a WAV file or an AVI. I can't remember what the other one's called, because if you export as MP3, you are going to get some compression, and I'm not talking about like compression like squishing everything together. I'm talking about you're gonna lose information about your WAV files. And I would use a high sample rate, also obviously. You could even use 96,000 kilohertz. It's a little overkill. Okay guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something. And if you have any tips or any suggestions, leave them in the description below. I love to share knowledge of how you might approach something, and we all have our different ways. And that's basically it. Hope you liked the video. Free presets below in the description. And have a great day, and go create something awesome.